Happy Death Day is directed by Christopher B. Landon and stars Jessica Rothe as a college student in this sorority that she's a part of, and is also is murdered on the day of her birthday by a mysterious killer wearing a mask that looks like a baby face crossed with like Porky Pig type of mask. And after the following morning, she wakes up and she discovers that she's actually reliving the exact same day every day, and is being killed off by the killer each day on that exact same day, basically. And basically, she starts to come to fruition that she must stop this killer in order to prevent her own death while stuck in this time loop that she's at. Now, a little backstory. Now, I was actually not really looking forward to this movie too much after I saw the trailers. I initially, when I first saw the trailer of this film, I actually kind of got curious because I like this kind of concept they use where basically, if you ever seen Groundhog Day or Edge of Tomorrow, or even that other one that came out earlier this year called Before I Fall, it uses a narrative by having the main character basically going through, like, stuck in this type of time loop where they are pretty much having to relive the exact same day every single day of their life. And when they're killed, they're basically they basically repeat that same day over again and have to find an alternative in order to stop themselves from dying. And basically, this film, I was looking forward to it on just that concept, but at the same time, it really got me worried because this is a slasher film. That's part of a genre that I really enjoy. But what got me really nervous was the fact that it was actually PG-13. And I'm a big slasher film fan, and to me, I feel like the rating for this type of genre does not work unless it could really be done, decently. Because I feel like if you're going to do a slasher film, you need to have it as R-rated to show a lot of the gore and, basically what slasher films in the 70s and 80s did, where you got to see the gratuitous, blood and gore and everything. And so that was one of my biggest skepticals going into this film, and I was really expecting it to not really be too well. But much to my surprise, I actually didn't mind it too much. Now, is this a good movie? No, not. Is this a good movie? No, not necessarily, but I did find it very entertaining. Now, I have actually come to enjoy here and there with movies that are produced by Blumhouse Productions. Like in the past, I enjoyed some of the Purge films and some of the other films that they've done, including this year's Split. But they've been kind of hit and miss for me, and so I'm not like a horrorcore fan with their work, but anytime that they come out with something new, that it kind of gets me curious, but at the same time, I either go into it with low expectations or even, hopes for it as well. So I'll go ahead and say that while I did find this film entertaining, but it is incredibly flawed in my opinion. So to get my pros out of the way, I actually really enjoyed the performance by Jessica Rothe. I think that she's a new upcoming actress in Hollywood, and I think that she really shines in this film a lot. Like, she definitely carries this film. You can really see a lot of because when the film starts out, she is a very bitchy kind of character where she's unlikable. She basically dismisses everyone around her, including this guy that supposedly had a one-night stand with her when the movie starts, and him and her later try to, understand what's happening together and everything like that. And she's also very dismissive of her roommate that she stays with in the sorority, and also the sorority girls that she's around too. So at the beginning of the film, you can see how unlikable her character is, but what I enjoyed was how she actually acknowledges the fact that she is a bitch. And throughout the film, she even comes to actually come together in full terms to be a better person. And I like the arc that she goes through throughout this movie in order for her to, not only survive from being murdered, but also having to be a good person. And so I highly enjoyed her performance, and I enjoyed the way that her character goes through. And she's really funny at times too, because one of my other big pros of this film is I like the way that the film's humor is kind of self-aware, that kind of reminds me of Scream, and how you're basically taking similar cliches from the slasher genre, but you're kind of making fun of them, or you're trying to, point out the obvious things that are happening. And this film does that a couple times, and the characters seems like they're in on the joke as it appears, and I actually really enjoyed that. And the humor does kind of reminds me of like this film is kind of basically like a mixture of like Mean Girls meets like Scream, basically. Or you could say it's more equivalent of Scream 2, because that film also took place in a dormitory or in a college. So, but I was actually very thrown off by how well the film actually had a lot of comedy in this, because, you know, from the previews it made it look like it was a straight horror film. But I laughed quite a bit, and I actually went to see this with a friend of mine, and me and her were cracking up quite a bit, and I actually really enjoyed the way that the film was, you know, trying to not take itself so seriously. I mean, it was still taking itself seriously, but at the same time, the whole idea of her being killed off in these every day by the killer and stuff, it got me really cracking up, because every time that she would get killed, it would just they would do a funny little twist on it every time, and when she's trying to look for clues for the suspects and everything that are potentially the culprit behind the mask. So one of my other praises too is that the film also has a twist that I won't reveal, but it did actually kind of surprise me on when you find out who the killer is, because at first I thought they were going to go with something, you know, pretty like straightforward and obvious, but then it kind of goes into a direction I'm like, oh, okay, so that actually makes more sense now. So I actually really enjoyed that way they did that twist in the film, and it actually got me into it. And so that was another thing I also enjoyed. Now here's pretty much where I get to my cons. While I did enjoy the film's self-aware humor, that's very, you know, that's trying to be satire, I did feel like, you know, some of the scares that they try to do when it gets to the actual slasher stuff, I felt like did not work, because to me, some of the kills are just very off-screen a lot of the time, and I don't feel like scared or intensified of what's happening, you know. And there are a lot of just typical jump scares that happen throughout this film that I can call from a mile away. And I felt like if the film would have at least been more of an R-rated, it would have upped more of the gore and a lot of the violence a lot more, so that it would hold more of an impact. But they didn't do that with this one, because they wanted to make it PG-13, which I get they want to do that with a lot of films nowadays, but there's been other films that come out this year that at least are satire, that are that are R-rated, that, you know, that were still good too, like Get Out this year. So, I mean, I don't really think they should. I really think the film could have upped more of the brutality than what we could have seen for the deaths. And I'm sure probably there's going to be maybe a later R-rated or unrated cut comes out later on DVD, but I just wish they would stop doing that and just put the actual version in films, the version that was supposed to be shot that way in the theater, you know. But I could be wrong. Maybe they were actually going for a PG-13 rating, and they probably didn't even shoot it as R. But I'm just saying, I really feel like slasher films always need to be R-rated in my opinion. The only other PG-13 slasher film that I didn't mind too much that was similar was that movie, the remake of The Stepfather. Now, I'm not saying this film is. I'm not trying to compare the two. I'm just saying that film also was a PG-13 slasher film that kind of went to the same thing, but I felt like it was a lot better than I expected. And with this one, with the Happy Death Day, I will say it's at least not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it could have been a lot more if they would have pushed more of the brutality. Another con I did have too was that I felt like there were things that didn't always add up necessarily, that I felt they kind of could have maybe explained more, like the whole time loop thing that she's going through. I get the reason behind all of it, but it still does. I really felt like they could have maybe added more, or maybe explain a lot more why specifically she's going through all this, through this entire, why she herself is going through all this, this reliving the same day and stuff. So there are some questions that I felt like could have been answered a lot better than what the film was telling us, basically. And another thing too was that the characters themselves in the film kind of go through a lot of the same cliches that you've seen in other countless slasher films. Like, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I did feel like some of the things that the characters that she's going through kind of remind me a little bit of Sidney Prescott. So I did kind of find it very, you know, familiar territory with her character. But overall, I did feel like this was an entertaining slasher film, and it's definitely a lot better than I expected. So with that being said, I'm going to give Happy Death Day a 6.5 out of 10. For those of you who have also seen Happy Death Day, what did you guys think of it? Comment below, and if you like what you see here, you can feel free to check out more of my reviews here on my channel and on our website. And you feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you guys in my next review. I'll see you later.